when you're an insider who abuses your position of trust and privilege, you should expect to see the inside of a jail cell. We're glad that the court agreed and found it appropriate to send Mr. Tipton to prison.
Do you have confidence that you'll be able to get a significant amount of money back, or where are you standing as far as what you think you'll actually get? I think we can take from him first, because I understand he doesn't have any money. Do you think you'll get anything from Eddie at all?
Mr. Tipton does have some assets. So does his brother Tommy. So does Robert Rhodes. All three of these gentlemen have what ordinary people would call significant assets at their disposal. I think we're going to see some significant amounts of restitution, and the state lotteries together are able to go check for those assets, locate them, and force them to be sold.
What did you make of the judge's remarks?
I wasn't surprised to hear Judge McCall say what he said. I think that with a case like this, it's a little bit hard to imagine someone receiving a suspended sentence.
So your understanding is, do you know how much time you'll serve, really? I mean, what's realistic?
In Iowa, so ongoing criminal conduct is not a forcible felony, so there's no mandatory minimum at all. He'll get good time credit of approximately 60%, so every day that he behaves, he gets 1.2 days off. So the maximum sentence on this count in particular would be about 10 years. That would be an unusually long amount of time to serve. I expect he'll serve probably less than half of that. I wouldn't be surprised to see him serve in Iowa and then serve a little bit more time in Wisconsin, or serve all of his time in Iowa, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years, and then be released.
And do you think justice has been served if that happens?
In this case, it's hard to say exactly what justice is when you've got something so unprecedented. There's not much to compare it to. I think that the fact that he is agreeing to repay everything that he owed, that he answers to every question that we were interested in asking, and there were a lot of them. We sat down for over 6 hours. And the fact that he's going to serve years of his life in prison is appropriate.
And what did you learn from those 6 hours?
We learned that our investigation was thorough and complete. There were no tickets, no jackpots at that point that we had missed. We had located all of them. There were no co-conspirators that we had not located. And we had evidence that showed correctly how it was that he fixed the outcome of the tickets. So his cooperation would have been much more useful earlier on in the investigation when we hadn't actually located everything yet. But there was still a lot of value in having those questions answered when they were answered, simply to ensure that that was true and that it was complete. We didn't have complete data when we were reviewing lottery tickets from around the country. Some states weren't able to provide draw dates, for example, which were very important in isolating the fixed tickets. Other states weren't able to provide data at all. And so knowing that there was nothing else out there that we missed has a lot of value.
Can you tell us when Eddie Tipton first became, I think we know this, but when he first became a real suspect in this case? Now that it's all done, can you tell us how it came about that was it the video, somebody identified him, and just tell us about it?
Right, it all comes back to Michael Boardman from the Maine Lottery submitting through SurveyMonkey a tip that he thinks that man on that video buying that ticket is Eddie Tipton. When we received that tip, along with many, many others, his automatically became more interesting because of his place of employment at Muscle and the fact that he had a reason to not be identified as having purchased that ticket. I think as soon as his name came in to me, he was absolutely a suspect.
But that was years ago.
It
was years ago. It's nice to be done.
Terry, do you want to?
Usually after a big case closes, it's sort of like picking a weight up off your shoulders. This is more like closing a chapter in your life.
Mr. Rich, could you talk about what this means to the Iowa Lottery and maybe the fact that, what was your reaction when Eddie first surfaced as a suspect and somebody that was on the inside, which is your worst nightmare, I would think?
This is a big day for the Iowa Lottery, and I think lotteries across America, because it brings certainty and clarity to, I think, one of the most strange and unique lottery cases in history. And my thoughts today is being able to thank the Attorney General's office, the DCI, our lottery staff, and many, many, many others who helped investigate this and get enough evidence that we actually got a guilty plea out of it. That certainty I see a lot of people talk, or as people often talk about a violent crime that's physical and how that weighs on you and how that is. This is an emotional feeling because it was a violation of trust of a third party, of a vendor of the Iowa Lottery. So we're relieved, we're thankful, and obviously we're ready to continue to look ahead because there's always someone trying to beat the system, whether it's credit cards or anything, it seems like, in this world, and we have to be one step ahead, and we're going to do everything we can to be vigilant for that.
And what did you learn from this that you can use to go forward to help protect the lottery?
I think most people see this as a technological crime, but I think that equally it is also the basic crime of access and opportunity, which we see whether it's a local school district, a local county office, where someone may have the PO authority and the writing the check. Separation of duties are so important, and Eddie Tipton had the keys to the kingdom, and I think those are the things we changed immediately, made sure that any equipment that he had touched, that equipment was removed, and we continue to look ahead and make sure that we have those checks and balances as we proceed.
The judge seemed to indicate that he found Tipton's apology insincere. How did you receive it?
Today's sentencing wasn't as, let me see if I can say it one more time, it's a tongue twister. Today's sentencing wasn't as important to me as his admission of guilt. The certainty most people involved in crimes and trials like this, and this is my first big legal case that I've been involved in, you don't get what we get today, which is the certainty that he said he did it. And there is no doubt by anybody, and we had a lot of people doubting, did he really do it, and what should we do, or shouldn't we wait until the trial's completely over? We moved ahead right away, and we together with the AG's office and the Department of Criminal Investigation, the state of Iowa should be really proud. And I think the other thing that I'm proud of is, as a public official, my boss and bosses, legislature and the governor, didn't say, hey, be careful because this is a lot of money, $350 million you're messing with here if this doesn't go right. They said, we don't care about the money, we care that the games are fair and honest. And with that leadership, we were able to support in every way possible to go to whatever we could do to bring this trial to a close.
Do you believe that this gave the lottery a black eye? Did it jeopardize your integrity?
I think anytime you talk about somebody internally doing fraud, you have concern. On the other hand, I think that our players stuck with us because they saw that we weren't going to give up. And that's a real important piece of this when you are looking for fraud, to be able to solve it and then understand how it was actually done so you can have corrective actions so that it won't happen again. But again, we're never perfect. Just like my computer at home, I'm always providing patches, that I get patches to update. Then tomorrow somebody else is going to try to break into my computer, I have to get another patch. We're doing the same thing in the lottery, and the lottery industry is looking and trying to stay one step ahead of anybody who may try to do something illegal.
So it's had no impact on sales as far as you know, and nothing to do with the Hot Lotto game being discontinued, anything like that?
Our sales have continued to grow and be record-breaking across the board, and part of that, I think, is the transparency. We've said from the beginning, our staff said, let's be open, let's say it, what we think happened, let's work and tell the public that be vigilant when you go out, sign your tickets, check your tickets, all of the things that people do when you do in everyday life in trying to protect yourself. And actually, I think we saw the increase because people saw that we were active and we were very visible of saying, we're after this and we're going to solve it.
And I'd like to go back to that question for 1 second. You asked if this has given the lottery a black eye. What I think it's important for people to understand is that if you think this has given the Iowa lottery a black eye, then you don't know the details. The only reason any of this happened today is because the Iowa lottery said, we're not going to pay this ticket here in Iowa until we are assured that the people who purchased it and everyone who possessed it is not a prohibited player in any way and was acting legally and appropriately. That's the only reason that any of this came to light. They could have paid it out and we would have had no idea, and it could be still going on today. It was the Iowa lottery that said, under threat of lawsuit, right? The folks who had tried to claim that Iowa ticket were saying, we're going to sue you if you don't pay this out. The Iowa lottery stuck to their guns and they said, no, we're not paying it out. And a criminal investigation began because of that.
Mr.
So-
James, Mr. Richard, maybe you weren't probably around here, but Mr. Showers, when he was standing here, said that the lottery and Muscle should have been, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but should have been more vigilant, should have caught this a lot earlier. Can you respond to that? I mean,
I guess my response is this was Mr. Tipton's attorney. Bottom line is, Mr. Tipton created a crime, and it took a while. The legal process is an amazing thing to witness and experience. I'd like to have it done right away, but it took some time. But that effort of doing it right is what ultimately created the guilty plea. And to me, that's success. I mean, that's exactly what we wanted. And along the way, there were all sorts of fun and interesting stories of how we got to that, because it didn't just take me or Rob or the DCI. Everybody had a different contribution, starting with the very first call we received, the trip up from the gentleman, Philip Johnson in Canada, who said, I bought the ticket. And when we asked him to describe himself, because we had the evidence of the video, we knew right away it couldn't have been Philip Johnston. And our staff recognized the old, if you see something, say something. This doesn't feel right. Contacted security, ultimately the DCI, the Attorney General's office. That started everything in process. So I think having the organization all focused on trying to keep integrity as high as possible is one of the big things. And each of those had a different step and made this thing unbelievably interesting and very mysterious in various aspects of it.
are you concerned there's other Eddie Tiptons out there that haven't been apprehended?
Are you asking me, will people try to prevent fraud again? What do you think, Rob? It protects a...
I think if there's anybody out there who's thinking about doing this, this should probably make them think twice.
Probably
And
took.
I'll also go back just quickly to the question about whether we should have found this earlier. Every time you try a case, you're talking about a defendant's actions and what they did in terms of trying to prove what crime they committed. It's always you're always going to be criticized. The police, the prosecution are always going to be criticized because they took too long, or they jumped to conclusions, is the other way of putting that. Maybe they took too long because they didn't have enough evidence, or maybe they just found one little piece and they jumped into something too quickly. Maybe when they were questioning someone, they were being too rude. Maybe they were questioning someone, they were being too friendly and conversational. The criticism is fine. At the end of the day, what it comes down to is we kept at it, we kept working, we didn't get discouraged when we hit roadblocks, and right now we're at the end of the day and we got our man.
Probably took significant financial resources, I'm assuming, to get this case in the last several years through court. Will there be any kind of disclosure at all at some point? I mean, this had to cost you a lot of money.
Hey, I think, it's our goal, always has been, to have full disclosure on evidence and things that we can disclose. Now that we're past the trial, I think you'll see a lot of the information that you're discussing. But let me make a point really clear. No matter what this cost, the integrity of the Iowa lottery, it was well worth it. It was a very small price to pay, the time and the money, to keep the integrity. We do $350 million. The lottery industry does $80 billion a year. And if we did not pursue this, and down the road someone said, wait a minute, this happened, and didn't pursue it, that would cost us way more than what we talked about here. So we think that was a good investment, and the support that we've had from the folks at elected officials within our state, I think will back that up.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.